This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. All right. Well, you may like to write, you may not like to write. You may think you're a good writer, you may think you're a prolific writer, but that's all about to change with my next guest, the amazing, the incredible Dr. Professor Admiral Scott Ginsberg.
Thanks, man. This is very exciting.
So for people that have been around the block a little bit, they may know you under a couple of other names. Name tag Scott. Hello, my name is Scott. Or just like I said, the awesome and amazing Scott Ginsberg. Give us a quick sketch of the professional journey that brought you to today and some interesting highlights and lowlights along the way.
Sure. So many years before I was a professional public speaker, I started writing music at a very young age. And then when I was in college, I launched an independent record label where I was my only artist. So I signed myself and put out an album that I sold at coffee shops and bars where I was playing little acoustic gigs, trying to, make a few dollars, maybe get a couple of dates. Neither one of those things happened. And then about halfway through college, I had this idea to start wearing a name tag just for fun. It was sort of a goofy college experiment that so many people do. And, I had this amazing response from people when I started wearing this little sticker, and everybody was like really friendly and, saying hi to me. And as someone who was struggling to meet friends and find a community in college, my loneliness was instantly lifted on a single night. And I'm like, well, why would I ever take this name tag off? So that was 20 years ago, still wearing the damn thing. And I really had no idea that it would launch an entire career, including speaking and a variety of other pursuits. But that's where it ended up. And that's been this crazy 20 plus year journey that all sort of centered around writing. That's my thing. That's who I've been since I was a little kid. And so my career has always been like, what are the different ways that I can take the gift that I have and the joy that I have of writing and find different ways to create value for people and share, my ideas with the world.
Before we turned on the mics just a second ago, I was doing some fact checking and I said, did you actually write 50 books? And you said, oh yeah, totally. You've written 50 books. You go to Amazon, there's page after page after page. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's live on Amazon. And you also have videos on YouTube. This was from years and years ago about Watch Scott Write.
Yeah.
And these like time compressed videos of you creating, blogs and books and articles and all of these things. Where did this love of writing come from?
Part of it is genetic. I can't explain it other than winning the parent lottery. So that is the beginning of it. I just have it in me. And I think that when it comes to something like writing or any art form or, expressive capability, there's a certain amount of it that's just genetic, period. So there's that piece. That's a very unsatisfying answer for people. So let me give you some other pieces to that. I was also really fortunate to be raised in a family with a lot of creative people, entrepreneurs, artists, business people, et cetera. So I had a lot of support and a lot of encouragement. And I think that's a big piece there. So many people that I have met along my journey as a professional speaker, there's a lot of permission that they don't feel they have to write or to share or to create or do whatever. And I was really lucky to have that from an early age. So, the idea of, signing myself to my own little fake record label at age of 19, I could see that being unimaginable to people, but I was lucky to have that kind of support. And then, the other piece in terms of loving writing so much, it's just my joy. It's how I connect with other people. It's how I connect with myself. And I also found over time, I'm like, oh, this is actually useful to other people. I can write a song or create a book or give a presentation or do whatever. I can be useful to people. I like the utility of writing. I think it's so underrated. And so to me, that's where a lot of that joy comes from.
And the blogs and the books and the shows and all of these different things, you've always been able to tap into this tremendous response from your audience, from your readers, from your listeners, from your viewers. I mean, you are and have been for a long time kind of a one-man media empire.
For sure.
Do you feel that fan reaction, the emails you get, the thank yous, the all the great things that you're doing now with this software platform that we're going to talk about, but the satisfaction that you are not only reaching people
Yeah.
with the writing and with the creative output, but they're receiving it, they're valuing it, and they're acting on it.
Yeah, it's really powerful. I think that I would say specifically for someone who writes for a living, I think the two biggest fears for a writer are number one, no one's going to read my stuff. And the second biggest fear is people are going to read my stuff. And the first one lasted for a while when I started doing this. And then, yeah, especially as the technology evolved where we were able to engage with fans and readers, early 2000s and then thereafter, yeah, that second thing started happening. And I'm like, oh my God, you actually read that and it helped you? I'm like, holy crap. So that was hard to receive and hard to kind of wrap my head around. But, all writers want to be heard. We want validation. We want our approval and we want people to be excited about what we do. So yeah, like over the years, I've printed out so many emails and not someone saying, hey, you're awesome. I mean, I love hearing that too, but like someone saying, hey, you did this thing and that made me think, I should go do this other thing. And to me, that's super exciting. I'm a better example than I am a teacher. So it's probably the best use of my time to go out and do things. And then hopefully other people will see that. And for whatever reason, get a chance to do something of their own.
Now, it's funny because people in your situation, which are specifically very gifted, very high output, very high energy people, there are two words that you get labeled with. I'm guessing that the number two word is Scott, you are so creative. And the number one word is dude, how did you get so prolific?
Right.
And this concept of prolific. And this guy's just a factory. He's a machine of ideas and media and video and articles and blogs and ideas and strategies. Talk about the difference between creative and prolific, and then talk about how you've capitalized on this label of prolific. And now you've been cooking this idea up for a good number of years. And then let's start talking about what that is today. But talk about creative versus prolific.
That's a really good distinction. Those are two words that I'm sure are difficult to define and that a lot of people would have their own definition of it. But I think the difference between the two is volume. Most people use prolific in a couple different ways. There's the sports analogy, like he's a prolific hitter or a prolific pitcher, or that you get a lot of prolific scorer in various sports. There's prolific as a writer, which you've used. Ryan Adams is a prolific songwriter, one of my favorite guys. And then there's the prolific in the natural world. The seeds were prolific. The plants or the perennials or the annuals, they were prolific this year because so many of them grew in our garden. I like the last one. I like the garden concept to it because it's, we're thinking of our ideas as seeds and we're going out there and we're going to plant seeds. And some of them may grow. Some of them may blossom into something beautiful. Some of them may never even make it. They're like stuck in the concrete cracks. But it doesn't matter because the joy of planting the seeds and, if possible, watching them grow is really satisfying. So that I would say is the difference between those two words. Like we're all creative. It is a human tendency that we have no choice but to be creative. Even if we don't think we're creative people, I'm sure everyone listening is, doing their thing as a speaker, writer, et cetera. They probably think they're creative, but we all know someone who's convinced themselves they are not creative. And there's nothing I'm going to do to reverse that story. So I'm not going to try to get them off that train. But we all know problem solving is what we do. Prolific to me is the intersection of the volume, right? The output and the velocity. The value comes there too. I tend to put speed and volume over quality. I'm not saying the stuff I put isn't good quality because I think it is, but I find that if I go for volume, but if I go for speed, the quality comes in time. And that is what prolificacy or being prolific is about.
So now let's talk about getprolific.io, which has been an idea that you've had. I think at first it was going to be a book, then it might have been an idea for a video series, but it ended up as this amazing software platform. Talk about what it is, and then let's talk about kind of the genesis of how it came to be.
Sure. So high level TLDR before I go into my long-winded story. Prolific is a brand new software app, and it is a suite of tools that helps creative people execute their ideas. Okay, so that's what that is. Now let me back up 18 years and tell you a little bit about how it came to be. So because I've always been referred to as prolific, that is the compliment that people have always given me. I always knew that was a thing and a gift and something that I had that was useful. So I was able to use that to fuel my career over all these years. But over time, people started asking me about that skill. It wasn't just about like, hey, how do you wear a name tag? Hey, how do you be more approachable? Hey, all these other things that I was interested in. It was like, how do you actually do all that stuff behind the scenes? And I'm like, is that valuable to you to know that? Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, okay. So I think initially it was very organic in terms of understanding my creative process and why it's unique. And then it sort of shifted from organic to deliberate. And it was like, okay, I think I have an understanding of what the gift is. And I had a chance in 2014 to teach a class, a continuing education class at NYU. A friend of mine taught there, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, I would love to, have that on my resume and teach the youths how to be more prolific. So youths, as if I'm old. So I spoke to the woman who was in charge of programming, and she said, here's what we're looking for. We want to do a writing class, and we want to accomplish X, Y, and Z. Can you put together a syllabus? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I got a little carried away, which is something I am known to do when it comes to projects like this, and spent about a month essentially reverse engineering my own creative process. And I think I can go find this. I'll have to share it with you. But I found like a spreadsheet of like, okay, what is everything I've ever made? And how did I do that? Why is it that the documentary that I made worked like this? And how did I do that book and that other thing? And I started to realize, oh, I have tools. I have these things that are really effective. And I know they work for me because I teach them to other people. And I have coworkers that use this stuff. So I'm like, okay, I have something here.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. I remember I was over at your place in St. Louis.
Right.
And I think you showed me your laptop.
Right.
Which was a scary, scary place to be.
Right.
And you had, when you talk about tools and systems, you had these nested folders.
Right.
And this organizing system and these prompts and these idea starters and these raw building blocks of your creative process. Was that the initial beta version of this?
Yeah. I mean, it was all done very simply and very just straightforward of like systems and folders and labeling. And as much of a right brain person as I am, I'm very organized. And I have my OCD tendencies around labeling, no pun intended, but the way that I organize it, people always wanted to look at my screen and go, wait, what did you just do right there? Why did you title the file that? And why did you put that over there? I'm like, oh, see, you put this over here. So that way, when you search for it later, it indexes in two different locations and, all this geeky stuff. So because people seemed to think that was valuable and because I knew that it worked for me, I thought, great, I have the tools. Let's get them down. And back to the NYU thing, didn't work out. For whatever reason, NYU wanted to take full control of my intellectual property if I were to become an adjunct professor. I'm like, and see you later. Sorry. That scared me. So I ended up writing a series of books on the prolific philosophy and how it applied at that point. This is like 2014. And I was really proud of it. It was very different from the other stuff that I'd written. And so over time, I continued to hone and develop these tools. And, I have a day job. I work for a startup. I've worked for a variety of startups and ad agencies now since 2012 when I retired from full-time public speaking. And in that time, I've really honed the tools to see how they operationalize on a team and how they work with collaborators. And so I knew these tools worked. And that brought us to this year, 2020. And once COVID hit, I was thinking like, I'm in a position right now where I have extra time. Got the old government stimulus check. I'm like, great. How can I use this to have a wider impact with these ideas? And that's where Prolific came from. I knew that I had this incredible library of tools that I know is very helpful. And, I spent this whole year with my design partner putting together a technology that gives people access to these tools so they can also become prolific.
Talk about, and just big high level.
Sure.
Right? There's 4 categories of tools.
That's right.
There's mindsets, approaches, behaviors, and assets.
That's right.
Give us the kind of the blueprint of how the system works and then how you were able to translate that into software.
Well, I knew that there were a lot of different types of tools. And when I was organizing my tools, on a spreadsheet at the beginning of this year, right when COVID hit, I started to see patterns. And I thought, okay, there's a lot of the tools that I have that are like, this is a way to think about something, or this is a mindset or an attitude. And, a good example is like temporal abundance. So temporal abundance is tool, 296 or whatever the hell it is. And it's a mindset of thinking about time, that we have plenty of time to do all the things we need to do. And I don't complain about time. I don't worry about how many minutes I've been doing. I have an abundant mentality, and I never have run out of time to do things. So there's an example of a mindset, right? And I started to see these patterns that if you think of it as sort of like a funnel, the top of the funnel here, the tools, mindsets, this is big picture. This is attitude, how you think about stuff. Then it goes to approaches. So approaches is like, all right, we're getting a little more strategic here. We're getting it's a mindset, but we're like looking at the problem we want to solve creatively. Then it gets more tactical. So we've gone from strategic to tactical in these prolific tools. And now we're getting into behaviors. So this is like, okay, every morning I do this, or after I finish a public speaking gig, I spend 20 minutes doing a debrief. That's a tool. Or before I give a speech, I do this thing. Or the day my book comes out, I do these things. These are all behaviors. And then lastly, we have assets. And that's, I think, one of my favorite ones, because assets are physical things. So can you see in my office on the upper left corner, there's like a blue calendar up there?
Yes.
Okay. That is my victory log. I'm a huge fan of victory logs. I don't have to-do lists. I have victory logs. And that's an asset, because every time you do something on a given day that you feel is a victory of any kind, you mark it down. And that builds momentum and confidence. So I bought a special giant wall victory log. So every day when I have a prolific related victory, like if I get new users or members, or if I do an interview like this and I'm proud of that, that's an asset. It's the victory log. So those are the tools going from large to small. I'll say them again. We have mindsets, approaches, behaviors, and assets.
Now, this is kind of like Felix the cat's magic bag. If you're stuck, and you can be stuck on any of these 4 levels, correct?
That's right.
You can be stuck with just like, oh, I'm kind of down in the dumps and
Yeah.
life sucks and I hate my job and I hate my boss. We might want to focus on the mindset thing. If we're working on a project or we have a team of people that we're working with, now we might be at that, 15,000 foot view with approaches. If we're kind of rolling up our sleeves and doing the work, then we're probably going to be more in category number 3, which is the behaviors and changing our behaviors, kind of an outside in approach. And then assets is going to be the library of tools and physical things that are, job aids, or they help us accomplish something or get on track, stay on track, get back on track faster than we ordinarily would.
For sure.
Now, you've also done some amazing work, and I'm thinking back to the brand tag initiative, where you would go into a company and you would really distill the essence of their corporation. Not like the typical kind of brass thing on the wall with the mission and the vision, but really, what's the operating system? What's the guts of the company like? When someone's looking at this and they're a corporate executive and they say, man, I need to unleash the power of this on my team. I need to unleash this in our R&D department. I need to unleash this in our sales department.
Yeah.
Is there because this is a very private, I'm guessing, a very private kind of personal process. How do we groupify it? How do we say, okay, I'm a VP of sales. I want my sales team to be the number 1 team in the whole gosh darn company. How can I, as the manager, encourage them to use all the prolific tools in the tool set?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that. And I don't have the enterprise solution yet because it just launched over a month ago, but that is sort of down the road what I want to do, because right now it's very personal. And, when I think about someone like the director of sales or someone like a leader of creative, so maybe like an ad agency has a creative director, okay? And the creative director at an ad agency, I use this example because I've worked at these kind of places, they have 5 to 10 people from junior to senior level that are producers from graphic design, video, writers, copywriters, et cetera. So part of their job is inspiring the people who need to be prolific. Creative directors probably tend to be the least prolific of anyone in an agency environment or that kind of workspace. So their job is to encourage, to inspire, to give the type of feedback in a way that's going to like fan the flames of the people that are, really like doing the grunt work. So there's an example of someone who, gets into prolific, and they can find this, sort of creative director role. They can find the tools that are specific to collaborating. And you'll see that, once you start getting into the different tools, it's very clear which ones are meant for teams. Each of the tools, there's, 300 of them or so. They have images, and a lot of the images, you'll see a couple people, you'll see like a team around a dry erase board. It is visually indexed in a way where someone who leads a team can find the tools to make everyone prolific. And you get 5, 10 people at your office being prolific or your company being prolific, that rises the tide for everyone. So that's a huge way that an organization can get into it. But in terms of like operationalizing it, like Slack, where you get like the enterprise solution where everybody gets an account, like I'm going to get there. That's going to be a V2. Right now we're in beta. We're not even at V1 yet. But when I get to V2, I'll be excited to put together like an enterprise plan.
Massive licensing deals.
Oh my God. I tell you, one of the most exciting parts of building a software platform. I've never done this before. This is very different. It's not a speech. It's not a book. It is an entire discipline and it's its own business, right? So the fun part that I did, and if anyone is really likes to geek out on this kind of stuff, I have a pitch deck on the Prolific site. And this is my like pitch deck to angel investors. I've never actually pitched to anyone. I've never talked to angel investors, but the exercise of making a pitch deck for your own business is one of the most important things you could do. I think Guy Kawasaki has like his rules for like, if you do a pitch deck to sell a startup or get venture capital, it's like 12 slides. Not surprisingly, mine's like 78, I think. It's insane. And I didn't care because I just wanted the exercise. So there's a page on the pitch deck that this is a really fun thing to do. It's called Future Optimizations. So anytime you're building a business or a new brand or a new initiative, I challenge people to take time to really think about 1, 5, 10, 20 years down the road. What's the future optimization? How could AI be involved with this 5 years from now? What's the licensing program? What is the enterprise solution? What is the board game that, I can do a partnership with Parker Brothers in 5 years to, get this for children? What is the educational component that schools can buy? This is like the leverage mindset people need to have. It's like when you launch a thing, that's just the beginning. Right? I mean, Do It Marketing is a great example. I mean, you've been doing this now for so many years and, from classes to corporate programs and trainings, you've figured out how to leverage it. And that's what I'm trying to do now. This is, I think I'm week 7 of my new company here. I'm thinking like year 7, like, what are we going to do? How am I going to sell this to Adobe for $500 million? And if I'm going to get there, I need to think future optimizations. That's a fun exercise.
And I'm guessing that some of these prolific tools are helping you. It's kind of a meta level because the process that we are automating in the software is the process that brought the software to life. And it's also helping you expand and 10x and 100x and 1000x in your mind.
Yeah, it's very meta. And I would say maybe the most selfish artist that I know, because I do these things because I need them. I'm trying to solve my own problems here. So, like I said, I work at a startup. I have a day job. So like when I'm working on a project, I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, I have a tool for this. I got to go find it. I forgot what it is, but I'll use the search bar. I'll find the tool that I need. I go, that's right. That's what we have to do. And then I'll go back to work. And that's kind of the way I wanted to set up Prolific, which is I don't want it to be a platform like Pinterest or Asana, the project management software. I don't want people to like spend their whole life trying to be more productive on a productivity app. Like there's enough of those apps out there. I don't think they're that effective. I think they take more time than they save, frankly. So my whole thing with Prolific is like, okay, you get stuck, cool. Do you know what your problem is? Great, go solve it, and find the problem on the site and find the tool. If you don't know what your problem is, that's cool too. Like we'll help you find it. You can navigate through and find the right language. And then it's like, get the tool that you need or the exercise or the mindset or whatever, and then go back to work. Like go away. Like I want to have the lowest time on site of any website on the internet. That's my goal.
That's what I was going to ask you. So again, the website, and we'll talk about this at the end also, getprolific.io. This is meant for quick hits, right? This is ninja. Fast in, fast out, get it done, get the idea, and get back to work. So it's almost like, if you remember, this goes way, way back, but I think you remember when Microsoft Office first became cool, like it was out in like the mid 1990s, but like by 1998, 1999, remember it had the little assistant, the little paperclip guy would always be floating there.
That's right.
Like, hi, Scott, can I help you with something? And you would click on him and say, how the hell do I do a chart? How do I do a graph? How do I do this? And then you get the answer and little paperclip guy goes away.
That's right.
So is it like that kind of ninja, solve the problem, get back to work, apply the tool?
I want that to be a big part of it. I love Clippy. I have fond memories of Clippy when I was, growing up in the 80s and 90s.
That was his name.
Clippy was the best. People hate Clippy. Like there's there's entire subreddits of like people trying to kill Clippy. So I want to try to stay away from that. But I do like this idea of troubleshooting. That's what Clippy was. Clippy was a troubleshooting, and this is pre-AI and pre-language processing. So the algorithm for Clippy, I think, was pretty prosaic. So now that we have incredible like JavaScript searches and the search functionality we have on Prolific is really coded into the language that we use so people can find their problem. I want that to happen. I want the troubleshooting, but there's a longer game here that I think is important because me, like I'm a troubleshooting guy. I'm like, okay, here's the situation. Here's what I think might be the challenge. Let me see if I can use this tool. Okay. Some people, they need the accountability. There's people that need the reminders and the accountability. And back to the sort of beta version 1, version 2, this is going to be a version 2 thing as well, is what is the accountability piece? I want the quick hits. I want the ninja. I want people to build the muscle of solving their own creative problems. But I also want to let people know that like, I'm going to keep inspiring them. On part of the subscription to Prolific, which is very inexpensive, is you get a daily meditation from me in your email every day. And it is, it's like 1/2 page and it's juicy stuff on a very specific topic. And I've gotten tremendous feedback from people that they say that's their favorite part. And I wouldn't have thought of that because personally, I like the tools, I like the troubleshooting, but some people just like, they need a push, they need some inspiration. And like, I can't scale myself as much as all of the speakers and consultants of the world. We would love to scale ourselves. I can't. So the daily meditations are a way of me like, staying connected to people. And, when I get an email from someone's like, oh man, today's meditation was so great. I really needed that. Thanks a lot. Like that to me is helpful. So there's like that balance of the quick hitting troubleshooting, but also that like day by day, as you need it at the right time. I think that'll hit people as well.
What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Now, last couple quick questions. You are not a programmer. You have a programming team. You have a development partner. For folks that are listening that might have an idea, you had this amazing idea and this amazing thought leadership around Prolific. And they're like, I know that this is a software platform. I know that this is an iPhone app. How did you find your partner? How do you collaborate with your partner? How do you compensate your partner? How does all of that go from the creative brain to the technical brain?
Yeah, that's hard for me because I'm not a fundamentally tech brain guy. I'm a right brainer. So it's something I've had to learn to do just in my career as an entrepreneur. There's always like that jumping off point where I have to like find a partner or say to my existing partner, okay, here you go. And I sort of dump a bunch of shit on their lap. I'm like, great, what do we do with this? So I've done that for books, products, events, movies, all this different stuff. And there's a couple of really good lessons I've learned. The first lesson is you want to find a partner whose work already inspires you. Like finding the right price is one thing. Finding like people that have good reviews, that's good too. I mean, like if you hire somebody on like Elance or Fiverr, Elance, Upwork is what I meant to say. It's not Elance anymore. Dating myself. So
Clippy.
Oh my God. So when you find the right collaborators, you want to find someone that when you look at their stuff, go, oh, that's so good. Years ago, I made a animated folk rock opera movie. And I found this extraordinary animator. I loved her work. And I said, hey, we've never met. I have this idea. I wrote these songs and I want to make this cartoon that's, 45 minutes long. I don't know what I'm doing, but what would you do if I handed over a script and some stuff? And she said, okay, here's what I would do. Here's what it will take. And she just kind of lays it out. And so I would say that's the second suggestion is once you hit the perimeter of your competence, as Warren Buffett likes to say, like reach out to people and be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't have the expertise and you do. I have this idea and I want to make it into something else. How would you approach this? Don't ask them to like write a proposal. Just how would you think about it? I've had people say, hey, I think what you're doing is great. I'm not the right guy for you. You need a 2D animator, not a claymation guy. I'm like, oh, I remember the animation I found. I wanted to do claymation or stop motion animation. And this guy's like, I can do it. It's about $360,000. I'm like, okay, that is just above my budget. But he's the guy that said, hey, You need 2D, not stop motion. 2D is cheaper. Find a student in college. I'm like, oh yeah, right. So that's like that piece is like just surrender and tell these collaborators, I don't know what I'm doing, and get their help. And you might have to go through a couple. You might have to find partners you don't like, but like once you find them, and I would say this is my third piece of advice, keep them. I've had the same book designer for 50 books now and for almost 20 years. I mean, we've become friends. We know each other's families. He's so wonderful. We have like all these great inside jokes. I don't even know what his hourly rate is. I couldn't tell you. I don't care. He's the best. I wouldn't dare hire another cover designer except my friend Jeff. So when you find these people, like stick with them because, they get to know you and the learning curve goes down. I mean, that's something with Prolific that I saw. I found is actually a friend of mine. His name's Ben. He's an outstanding programmer and designer. And he's actually a bit of a unicorn because he's a designer, like an artist, a visual designer, and a programmer. So you have a left and a right brain guy. That's pretty rare. So when you find people that have these like talent stacks that not only complement yours, but are rare, pay them whatever they want and just do whatever they say and like push back and, communicate what's important to you. But like, you got to defer to him. I mean, there's so many things I wanted to do with Prolific that he's like, I see what you want to do. I acknowledge that's a good idea. Here's why it won't work. Technology is binary. It's ones and zeros. It's not possible. So we need to find a better way to do that.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of conversations that when you find a partner, specifically like a software tech developer partner, you got to be willing to meet them halfway. And usually the outcome, it's way different and way better than what you would have thought. Cause like, you don't have that capability. You got to get those people that are filling those gaps.
Right. I love it. Well, the software is online right here, right now at getprolific.io. If people want more Scott Ginsberg brilliance, where should they go to connect with you and stay connected to all your new projects and initiatives?
So the easiest way to do that is just to Google the word name tag. I've made that very easy for people. And it's also, I tell people to do that because it's a good lesson. What is the word that's not your name that if people Googled, you would come up? If you Google do it marketing, you come up and everyone's kind of got their version of that word ownership. Anyway, that's a small little lesson disguised in my outreach. But yeah, just Google the word name tag. My everywhere. There's so many different things. It will feel overwhelming to people. There is way too much stuff for any one person to consume. I understand it is overwhelming. I sympathize with the fact that like you're never going to read all this stuff. It's okay. It's going to be great. And if I can help, let me know.
Let me tell you though about the Scott Ginsberg restaurant. And this is probably one of the highest compliments that you can say of any real restaurant.
Okay.
Try anything.
Yeah,
there's nothing bad here. It's all great. Anything you decide to pick, any book you decide to buy from Amazon, any blog post, any podcast episode that you find, it is going to be a gem. And then getprolific.io, at some point, we're going to say the same thing about you, the listener. So whatever you put out, it's always awesome. It's always great. And getprolific.io is simply your secret weapon.
Absolutely. Like it doesn't have to make $1 million. It doesn't have to be the best thing that ever happened. It has to be yours. That's what being prolific is. It comes from you. It's out in the world. You're proud of it. The process was enjoyable. That's it. Everything else is cherry on top. And if you want to become more prolific, the tools are there to help you do it.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.